Welcome to Dialogues in Design. Today we are going to be talking to Morgan Chawaga. Morgan is a career and business coach and the founder of The Healthy Architect, dedicated to helping CEO architects create more impact and more income. Through her evidence-based coaching, Morgan has successfully guided architects to become true firm owners and leaders, increase their revenue 2.5-fold in less than 6 months, create 20% plus profit margins, and lead people with integrity, all while achieving 32-hour work weeks. With a focus on leadership and delegation, she empowers her clients to thrive both personally and professionally. Through her coaching, CEO architects are making a living more. Hi, Morgan. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I am so excited to hear the insights you're going to share with us today.
Nikita, thank you so much for having me here. This is such a true honor to be here.
Thank you. So, to start with, I would love to know more about your architectural journey and what inspired you personally to transition from traditional architecture practice into coaching and well being for architects.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how far back should I go? I don't
As
I
much
don't
as you would like to.
Great. Well, I think I always knew I'll spare you all of the details, but I always knew that I didn't want to be a traditional architect. And I knew this, I think the first time it really surfaced for me was in my master's degree at the University of Pennsylvania when all of my colleagues were going to DC and New York and taking these more traditional roles of architecture. And that wasn't my route. So I did work. I went from the University of Pennsylvania and I moved back to Nashville to be a project manager in a brokerage firm. Um, Project manager doing architecture, but also development as well. And then I got hired on by an owner's representative. So I became an owner's rep for a medical facility. And from there, I went back to being a director of marketing for an architecture firm. And you asked me the second part of that question, you'd asked why I was inspired to shift into coaching and outside of the traditional architecture role. Well, one, I knew that I never was going to be a traditional architect, but two, I knew if I followed my intuition, which I help my clients find many of the times, if I followed my intuition and really looked internally about the impact I wanted to create, not only on the industry, but the world, I knew that I couldn't do that inside an architecture firm. And that in order to have the biggest impact that I could have on the industry, on individuals within the industry, on architects within the industry, I needed to step out and create something that had never been seen before.
That sounds really interesting. So, the healthy architect, that is such an interesting name. How would you define a healthy relationship with one's career, especially in a field that glorifies long hours?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, that is a wonderful question. How do I identify what healthy is a healthy schedule? I think that I can tell you what a healthy schedule is for me, but I can't really tell you what a healthy schedule is for other individuals, right? So for other architects, some of my clients, they work 20 hours a week and that's healthy for them. And they track their steps and they have 10,000 steps a day and they bring in revenue that's $50,000 revenue a month, 30 to 50,000 a month. And that's healthy for them. Whereas other clients that I have, they negotiate a 3-day work week or a 4-day work week sometimes. They negotiate or they create a career and a business where they take monthly self-care dates. So for a whole day, they take themselves out on a date. Some of my clients work from 12 p.m. until 5 p.m., where others are morning people and work from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. So I can't give you exactly what a healthy lifestyle is, like data, this is what you need to do to be a healthy architect. It's really looking at your overall goals, professional as well as personal, and finding what healthy is for you, what feels right in this chapter of your life, and what doesn't feel right. So it's really looking inward and saying, man, my nervous system is a wreck right now. I really need to take a step back and maybe need to start implementing 3-minute meditations in the morning. Or maybe I need to buy a Fitbit and actually start watching how many steps I'm taking and how often I'm stepping away from my desk, or how much I'm sleeping, or how much I'm working. But my overall answer is to look inward, because it really depends on the individual and what chapter they are in life.
Right, that makes so much sense. So, when you talk about looking inward, in your coaching experience, what is a common mindset shift that you have seen that leads to some of the biggest breakthroughs?
What a good question that is, Nikita. I love all of these questions that you're asking. That's great. I wonder about this often, and a common theme that I see in my clients, in my architects, is that they come to me scared, they come to me anxious, but they come to me with hope and faith that they can live a bigger life and a better life with more love for their career and their business. They just don't know necessarily how to get there. And they know that they can create more income for themselves while working less. They just don't know the path to get there. So I would say the mindset shift, going from fear and stagnation to, and it, I don't know if they notice this, but I notice it from this point of view. They'll come on screen with me during a coaching call, and it's like a switch has flipped. Like they finally come to the coaching calls with confidence, and I can see it on their face. Like the stress has just fallen off their face and fallen off their shoulders. And I believe it's when they start taking action. So instead of thinking about the fear and thinking about the scarcity mindset and thinking about, sitting in stagnation, they're actually taking action towards a better life and more money and more hours doing things outside of work in their career.
That sounds interesting. When you say this, you can see the stress actually come down. That sounds so great. A lot of young grads struggle with this stress, with a feeling overwhelming out in the field early on. What would you advise to young graduates who are dealing with such situations right now?
What would you say that they're feeling overwhelmed about?
I feel there are a lot of things going on, right? Right out of university, there is an imposter syndrome. You feel like you don't know things. Navigating into a new field, into a new environment, into a new team, probably in the job market as well, hunting for a job, making your portfolio. So there are multiple things going on all at once.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
how can we have a healthy relationship with architecture early on in a situation like this?
Yeah, let's talk about imposter syndrome just for a minute, because a lot of individuals, humans, architects, whether they own their own business or they're in a career, early graduates, they often have this imposter syndrome. And let me just tell you that in my world, we celebrate imposter syndrome. So when a lot of people have a mindset, or a lot of architects or graduates have this mindset of, "Oh, I can't do it. I'm not good enough," or this is a big struggle for me," or "Why would they ever give me that money, that amount of money?" Right? "How could I negotiate a salary? I don't know what I'm doing. I have to put together a portfolio. I've never done this before," right? In my world, I have a lot of clients that are in their 30s and their 40s, own their own businesses. Guess what? They still have imposter syndrome. It is something that we need to normalize. It is something that we can celebrate and change our mind to actually shift it to something that's positive. Because imposter syndrome to me means that I'm growing, that I am on a growth boundary, that I haven't quite become the next version of myself, that I'm stepping into that next version of myself, but I'm not there yet. And that I'm pushing myself to that next identity, or whatever it is I am, right? So for example, let's say you're a graduate architect and you haven't got licensed, and maybe it's in this scenario, not all scenarios you have to get licensed, right? But maybe it's your goal to become a licensed architect. and you're moving like an architect, you're learning things like an architect, you're doing things that architects do, but you're not quite an architect yet. So you're in that transition between graduate architect or recent graduate and being a licensed architect. So you're just transitioning between those two states. And that's where imposter syndrome comes from, is you're not fully stepping into this new next up-leveled version of yourself, but you're on your journey there, which is a good thing.
I love that perspective. This perspective shift makes me think about imposter syndrome positively, as you were mentioning. That sounds wonderful. You were talking about working hours. I feel in setting a healthy work-life balance, working hours play a huge role. How can a graduate set boundaries at work without feeling like they're being difficult or ungrateful?
Yeah. Well, again, look inward. Are you grateful for your position? Yes. Okay. That is all you need to know. If you are grateful for your position and if you are fulfilling the contract that you have signed, right? Let's say you signed a contract that said 40 hours a week. If you are fulfilling that contract, if you are grateful for your position, if you are doing a really good job at work, if you are checking the boxes, if you are a team member, a teammate, if you're completing all of your red lines or whatever it is that you do at work, right? And you truly are grateful, if you're being a leader at work, if you are doing the best that you can do, if you are asking questions and you are grateful, then you can set that boundary. So here's a mindset on establishing boundaries, a mindset shift on establishing boundaries. If you are working yourself to death, let's say 60 hours a week, and then you're going home and you're thinking about work and you're not sleeping because you're thinking about work and your red lines and your deadlines, you are doing a disservice to yourself, to your family, and to the architecture firm and to your clients and the architecture that you're producing. It is your job to make sure that you can come to work with a 100% full cup, right? Because if your cup is not full, if you have not slept well, if you are stressed, your brain is not working at full capacity. So it is your job as an architect to, yes, feel grateful for your position, but also to come with a full cup. And when you come with a full cup, you can lead better. You can lead your teammates better. You can lead the subconsultants better. You can think better. You can problem solve better scientifically, right? Your brain functions differently when you have a full cup and you're sleeping well and you haven't stressed, you're not completely stressed out, right? You create better architecture when you're not pouring from an empty cup. All of these things align. So if you need to set boundaries, I would shift your mindset to think that you're actually being of service to your clients and of service to your architecture firm by establishing those boundaries.
Wow, I love the idea of the full cup. So, to have a full cup and ensure that we are able to pour from a full cup, what is one daily or probably weekly habit you would recommend young architects adopt to protect their mental health?
I would say sleep. First and foremost, prioritize sleep because without sleep, your brain doesn't function at full capacity. So, an early bedtime. And as I get older, my bedtime gets earlier and earlier, but really a screen free early bedtime and getting enough sleep at night. Taking magnesium if you have to take magnesium, moving your body throughout the day so you actually sleep deep at night. Because without sleep, nothing else will get done to its greatest capacity.
It's so wonderful you talk about sleep because the culture I've seen in architecture schools, especially from where I come from, it is that if you pull an all nighter before the jury, if you're up all night working, that means that you're working hard. So, for a young graduate like that to come from that ideology and then prioritize sleep, it becomes difficult. So there are a lot of myths like this that we have going ahead in the career. If you could debunk one myth like that we have about success in architecture, about doing well in architecture related to stress, what would it be?
Yeah, well, let me just preface that I also went to schools, architecture school, right? I graduated with my master's in architecture from an Ivy League school. And it was also glorified to sleep in studio at night, right? Like everybody had these um I remember they would bring pillows and sleeping bags and refrigerators and noodles and food, and they would sleep in the windowsills in the school. And this is all the way from undergrad into graduate school. This is the culture, right? That was created. So I am very aware of and was part of that culture, right? I did sleep in the windowsills and I did bring in a small refrigerator, right? Studio was life and studio culture was life. But I would, if I were to do this all over again, and something that I'm ingraining in my children is to not go to really question everything around you always and ask yourself, is this right for you? You can still go through architecture school. You can still be an architect. And actually, I would really argue, and actually, I'm going to argue that you can be healthy. You can create wonderful, meaningful, impactful architecture on your community. If you're a firm owner, you can bring in 20% profit margins while working less than 40 hours a week. If you're a client, or I'm sorry, an employee, you can create a higher salary, negotiate a higher salary while sleeping and creating balance in your life. And I would argue that you're actually a better architect than the ones that are not sleeping and the ones that are not charging their value and the ones that are not negotiating. I would argue that all day long. And so my advice would be to question and to go against the grain when you feel like something isn't right or doesn't align with your values, or if you are burning out, or if you don't think you're getting paid enough, or whatever the scenario might be. Again, we're going to go back to look inward and question what's going on around you.
That actually makes so much sense. Thank you so much, Morgan, for sharing all of your insights on being a healthy architect. I hope I can at least involve all of this in my career. That would really make a huge difference. To end with, if a graduate is feeling stuck, undervalued, or unsure about their direction, what is one small step according to you they should take?
Yeah, wonderful. Two things. I would say one, write down what makes you feel valued. Write down what the steps are in the right direction. So, are you underpaid? If so, what kind of pay would make you feel valued? And actually write that down and revisit that. If you write it on a sticky note, revisit that sticky note to see what would make you feel valued. Or if it's that you're not included in certain conversations, write that down. Revisit that a few times and then communicate that with your employer. Two, if you have any questions, if you don't know how to necessarily navigate career opportunities or navigate your career, you can always book a consultation call with me. Nikita, I've given you the QR code. You can share this with anybody and jump on a call with me.
Of
I've helped
course.
architects that are licensed. I've helped designers that were unlicensed. I've helped urban designers in the Netherlands, all find positions that work for them, whether that's salary increases, reduced hours, or holding boundaries.
That sounds interesting. I definitely would love to have a bigger conversation with you regarding this. But thank you so much for giving us your time today and for sharing everything that you shared so honestly. It made a huge difference in my mindset about my career. Thank you so much for coming here and talking to me today.
Nikita, thank you so much for having me, and I hope you implement one thing that we've learned today.